Well, I should say right at the very beginning that this is not a real photograph of me. It's an avatar generated by artificial intelligence. And in the studio, I'm just going to give you just a few views of the TV studio that I will be likely to toggle through doing my presentation. Um, yes, so this isn't really me. It is me, but it's an AI generated avatar. And I'd like to show you just a few more of these as my introduction. So I'm going to begin by talking about some cool things you can do with AI and VR that are relevant to nursing education. And I want to make the point that this is all very hot topic and it seems very new, but actually it's the ideas behind all of this have been around for a long time, going back to my early days at the Serious Games Institute, so 15 years ago. I'm going to give some good news, and then I'm going to reveal some avatar pictures of Debbie and Anthony. And then I'm going to start by asking what ChatGPT thinks about the future of AI. I thought if I'm going to talk about ChatGPT, at least I should give it an opportunity to give its views on the future of nursing education. I'm going to show you some examples of AI and VI in nursing. I'm going to talk about the COVID effect because this is relevant to the acceleration in the use of digital technologies in all aspects of our lives. And to go on to a couple of other relevant things which are related to what's likely to happen with the future of nursing, and one of them is the Ageing Society Challenge, and the second is the focus on preventative healthcare and digital therapeutics. My summary and conclusions won't take very long, and then we'll be able to open up into to questions. So here are some of my other alter egos. All of these avatars were generated. I've actually got 100 of them, but I've picked a number of them so you can see that there are likenesses from these AI generated avatars. In fact, I'm quite tempted to not show my real video on some of these presentations that I do and use my avatar instead. I want now just give you another quick example of how within my business I combine artificial intelligence and virtual reality to show some examples of the kind of work that I do. So what you see on the right of the screen there is actually an artificial human. This is an artificial human, and what I've done is I've programmed him with some audio that I recorded to talk about the kind of work that we do at 360 and 360 immersive experiences. So you'll see a number of examples of 360-degree virtual environments that reflect the kind of things that we do in the business. So I'm going to start playing the video now. How would you like to fly over the city of Kuala Lumpur at night? So this is actually a real photograph of Kuala Lumpur at night with a drone. This again is a 360-degree photograph of a museum. A recording of a family event with my partner's father, who's now passed away. I love steam locomotives, and I've got quite a few immersive experiences on the footplate of steam locomotives. I use 360-degree photographs also to capture living memories. Another drone video of my hometown, Boston in Lincolnshire, with a Boston stump. They can be shared on all kinds of environment. Take a look at some of the examples on this page. So this is what I have on my opening page. So I'm now going to go on to the next, and this is going back in time. Right at the beginning of when I started as the founding director of the Serious Games Institute, and I think you'll be quite impressed by what was developed by a local games company. This is a games company called Blitz Games. They set up a Serious Games arm, and they wanted to show how you could use games technologies and 3D scanning to create avatars, lifelike avatars, that can simulate medical conditions, and also be used in training of people like paramedics. So I'm going to play the video now. So this begins with a 3D scan, and they use a 3D scan to create some algorithms that actually manipulate the facial expressions of this avatar. So by using a variety of slider bars, they can create all kinds of emotions, and so you could imagine how these could be used within video games, but they can also be used in all kinds of different simulations. And what I'm going to go on to now is to a simulation that links medical data to show nurses and medical practitioners what the experience of watching someone die from a head wound. So on the left hand side you see the avatar in his normal condition, and on the right hand side you see someone who is going to die in the next 30 seconds. And what you will see is how the medical data is being used to simulate the blood flow. It's going to simulate the pulsing of the veins in the neck as the body tries to cope with a situation. You'll see the avatar changing colour and become pale. You'll see the avatar sweating. You can see the veins pulsing now. And within 30 seconds, you'll see what it's like to watch somebody die from a head wound. He's now reaching the end. And all of this goes back to around 2007 and 2008. So that's one example of a video, but I also want to show you an example of other practical uses of this same technology. And in the top left hand corner of the screen you can see a scene from a product called Triage Trainer, and the idea is that people are unlikely, hopefully, ever to have experienced triaging people who are victims of an explosion in a city centre. So the city centre you see there is based on Leamington Spa, and you'll see the explosions, and they use this to set up a series of avatars who need to be triaged. So this was actually a game as part of a research project to establish whether you could use virtual reality and simulations like these to replace some of the traditional methods of nursing training or paramedic training using typically mannequins. So the idea is that the players in this game go around the city centre triaging 4 or 5 patients, and then measured on the accuracy of their triaging and the time it taken us to do that. And the results of this research project indicated that these types of simulations are more effective than traditional methods, and the reason is that people find them more realistic and so they're more engaged in them. This is an example of virtual hospital ward, going back to those early days, a little bit primitive. And then at the bottom of the screen, this is another project called Patient Rescue, and you'll see 3 avatars at the bottom. The idea is that you could automatically generate an avatar with different ages, ethnicities, backgrounds and medical conditions, and you could use these avatars to simulate medical conditions to train new doctors coming into the profession, because when they first start they won't have dealt with lots of conditions, and you're able to show them things that they may not may even not ever come across in their lifetime. But so this is not new. This is the point that I'm trying to make. It is not new. But the good news is that AI and VR are likely to benefit the nursing profession substantially, and I've taken the liberty of repurposing pictures of Dr. Holly and Dr. Basil. Dr. Holly has got a nurse's uniform on and a seaside background, and Dr. Basil, I wanted him to be in a white doctor's outfit, but that was beyond AI, so he has got a hospital background. And the picture on the right is not an actual photograph, it was generated by artificial intelligence. So there's some good news, and I want to explain why AI and VR are likely to benefit the nursing profession substantially. And one of the reasons is, and it's something that really inspired me from an online conference I did some time ago, and it was a lady presented a project called No One Dies Alone, and essentially it showed um, the value of the nursing profession and the human values of nursing that are very unlikely to be replaced by AI. Nursing is a vocation which is based on human values like empathy and intuition, and all of these things are unlikely to be replaced by AI, at least not in the near term. So, what does ChatGPT say on AI and nursing education? And I asked ChatGPT to give me 10 quotes and academic paper references on the impact of AI in nursing education. So, the first one says it's got the potential to revolutionise nursing education by providing personalised learning experience and real time feedback. I agree with that entirely. AI powered virtual tutors 24 by 7 support to nursing students, allow them to study and practice at their own pace. And the use of AI in nursing education can increase students' engagement and motivation, leading to improved learning outcomes. So I agree with all of those. What does it have to say on nursing roles? Again, I asked ChatGPT the question. It's got the potential to augment the clinical decision making and diagnostic skills of nurses, leading to improving patient outcomes. It can help reduce the workload and burnout of nurses, allowing them to focus on high level tasks. And it can provide real time access to patient data, allowing them to make more informed decisions and provide better care. Again, I don't have any issues with any of those. What about nursing education with VR? VR could provide nursing students with immersive hands-on learning experiences that simulate real-world patient scenarios. And these may be scenarios they're unlikely to hopefully encounter in real life. It can also help students develop clinical reasoning and critical thinking skills in a safe and controlled environment. And it can provide students with interactive and engaging learning experience that are less stressful and more enjoyable than traditional methods. So I happen to agree with ChatGPT on those. I didn't actually check the validity of the academic references, but I can leave somebody else to do that if they watch a recording of this presentation. So AI and VR in nursing, and I already mentioned that AI has the potential, maybe that not everybody knows about, to be able to create artificial images and videos. So in this case, I used an application and I told it that what I wanted a nurse using a smartphone in a hospital environment, and I wanted it to make me a picture of a nurse using VR and some haptic technologies in training. So, what about the impact of AI and VR nursing responsibilities? Well, I think this is one of the really big changes that we can expect over the coming years, is that it's likely to have a major impact on changing nurses' responsibilities and practices, because with the assistance of AI and VR, nurses will be able to take on tasks that have been traditionally done by specialists. And an example of this is a radiologist. Now, a radiologist traditionally has one of the major tasks is to be able to not only scan patients with their X-rays or MRI scans, but also to interpret the data and recognise whether some medical intervention is involved. Well, we've already reached the point where AI has got the ability to actually provide more accurate diagnoses than human beings. So in that instance, and in many others in medical practices, particularly where AI and big data is being used for medical diagnostics, it creates opportunities for nurses to take on high level skills. It also empowers nurses, and I'm not that I don't have a thing about doctors, but if you look at the doctor's medical bag, it hasn't changed in not only in decades, in centuries. So doctors and their medical bag still have stethoscopes and a range of blood pressure devices which are, age old. And we're reaching the point now, particularly with some of the wearable technologies and devices that are being consumerized, that nurses will be able to support many of these things by using the data that is collected from these types of devices. And I think there's going to be a shift in the way in which we handle the long-term care of patients, particularly. I want to show you another example, and this shows a transition from in a surgical environment from maybe a traditional surgical ward to the latest robotic surgery. But in between, the example I've shown is actually my partner. My partner, Jackie, she actually has no medical training. She has very little interest in computers and absolutely no interest in simulation and games. But she came with me on a trip to Kuala Lumpur on one occasion, which was to do with a medical technology conference. And pardon me, one of the booths there was actually a tool to train surgeons on laparoscopic surgery. So what Jackie is looking at on the screen is laparoscopic surgical tools, and this is the task is to remove a gallstone using the laparoscopic tools with haptic feedback. And she was able to remove a gallstone and get a better results than many trainee surgeons through the use of these kinds of technologies. So technology is very empowering, but it's also very challenging to establish practices. Virtual reality, I know Bournemouth University are doing some fabulous things with virtual reality and devices like the HoloLens and augmented reality headsets, and this is just an example of how a nurse can be trained with something like a HoloLens that will enable her to find her way around the human body and learn about it in her own time and at her own pace. So, but it's not just a case of artificial intelligence and virtual reality. All of these things are made possible, and this is why it's taken so long for AI and virtual reality to become more mainstream, is that it requires a cocktail of technologies, which include AI and machine learning, wearable devices and the Internet of Things, and biometric devices, which are increasingly consumerized. I wear two smartwatches, one from China and one Fitbit device, just to check it against. And I've been doing this for 9 years now, and it helps me to better manage my own health. But it also requires fast network connections, 5G and broadband. Because it's becoming consumerized, we see all of these things appearing on smartphones and mobile applications. That's a very important development for the future of healthcare. Virtual reality and simulation I mentioned, and the Internet of Things, which is how all of these different types of devices are connected to cloud computing that makes artificial intelligence and the interpretation of big data possible. So coronavirus has really accelerated the digital revolution, and one of the things that it's had is had an impact on patient care because of restrictions in physical contact, not only between patients but also between physicians and patients. And so this has led to a demand for telemedicine and remote care, and it's accelerated the use of consumable wearables which are medical grade in order to monitor patients remotely in their own homes. But it also allows us to explore personalised healthcare using a combination of artificial intelligence and epigenetics. Everybody has different DNA and everybody has different propensities for different kinds of medical conditions. But it's also led to a shift from cure to prevention, and it's accelerated the demand for integrated care services. So this is one of the implications for the future of nursing, is that a lot of patient care will be done remotely. So future care, I think, is more likely to be based in local communities using integrated care services, with a shift away from hospitalisation wherever it can be avoided. And this is where a combination of technology and human empathy or human qualities becomes extremely important. This is an example of some body doing a remote exercise clinic, giving people in wheelchairs advice on how to maybe do rehabilitation or exercise. Now, the other thing I want to mention is the ageing society challenge. As a 73-year-old, I'm very conscious of the fact that I am in this ageing society. And what we've seen is a combination of many things, a lot of which are related to lifestyle behaviours and practices, but also to increased mobility of a population, leading to quite a significant number of challenges for ageing society, not just illness, but also mental health problems from social isolation. And this is going to create greater challenges that nursing profession has an enormous role to play. This is a picture of my mother when she was in intensive care in Kettering General Hospital. She suffered from dementia, and she was really kind of representative of some of these challenges. We're living longer, we need more medical care, there's fewer working people to cover the costs. Caring for the elderly has shifted in my generation from family care to care homes. Unfortunately, elderly care is a poor relation of public health services, and what coronavirus has done is exposed our vulnerability to unsustainable public health care services. So home and community care will use technologies to enable partnerships where nurses, I think, will play an enormously important role. But all of this is part of a transition from cure to prevention. I argue that we have not a national health service, we actually have a national sickness service, which is focused on curing problems rather than preventing them. We need to make those changes. And nurses have quite a big role to play in this because they can act as coaches and mentors. And so it actually helps people to better manage their own health by perhaps getting involved in being trained in lifestyle medicine practices, because lifestyle related conditions are one of the biggest causes of mortality today. I just want to close up by mentioning a couple of things: digital medicine and digital therapeutics, and these are things I think which nurses, it's important for nurses to get involved in understanding where we're going with these, and these are based on, first of all, technologies like the one you see on the left, which is a kind of a mock-up of what you might see from wearables in the future. And these are devices that can influence our behaviour and lead to better personal health management. But these kind of technologies, virtual reality, AI and the rest of them, can also help to deliver therapies which are not dependent on drugs. So digital therapeutics, there's many developments in all kind of physical, mental health rehabilitation. Someone in the audience today is from a project called VR2 Care, which is a great example of the use of virtual reality for providing care for the elderly. And these kind of solutions must empower humanity and empathy. They provide solutions for physical and mental health, and in order to be effective, they must be plug and play. It's no good expecting particularly elderly or ill people to be able to tackle technological challenges. And to be effective, they must combine realistic challenges with fun. This is all part of the serious gains philosophy. It's important also to connect with, engage with the family and community, and provide feedback and diagnostics for both motivation and health traffic. And the whole point of this is it gives users control over their own health. So in conclusion, I want to finish off by suggesting that COVID-19 has actually accelerated the use of these digital technologies in health services. Not only empowering, but they're also disruptive. And that means that some people's traditional roles will be challenged by these technologies. Humanity and empathy must be paramount. Nurses' roles will change and upgrade. And VR and simulations, as people at Bournemouth University know, are great tools to help training. So finally, digital therapeutics will support rehabilitation, stress management and preventative healthcare. So if I just switch back to my studio, and I'm just going to see whether I've been joined by any of the audience. So it looks as if I'm on my own. So what I'm going to do is going to stop screen sharing in a second, and I'm going to sit myself down at another seat so you can see me sat in comfort, a comfortable armchair, ready to take any questions that you may have. So I'm going to stop screen sharing now, which will take me back to Zoom, and hopefully people will have gained something from that.